Paper discussion, Neurips 2025, whole body conditioned egocentric video prediction. This is a paper co-authored by Jitendra Malik and others. That's why I chose it. Before I go into the discussion of the paper, maybe just for people who are curious, how do I even choose the papers that I discuss? Well, our focus this year at Neurips has been on world models and embodied intelligence in general, and particularly models that can help either training in virtual world or training from video. So that's the focus, and therefore this is one of the papers that we wanted to talk about. Now, this is not training from video. This is actually generating video for robots directly, but it has definitely implications that could be used also for training from video. I'm going to discuss this in detail. Another reason why we chose the paper is because Jitendra Malik's on it. He's one of the professors, our go-to professors, and for better or for worse, given that I think there's been about 12,000 people at Neurips this year, and I don't know how many researchers, it helps to have a little bit of a guideline of who you actually want to pay attention to. And Jitendra is one of the people we do pay attention to. So now, talking about the paper, the problem that the paper is solving is you have an egocentric view of, let's say, a human. So imagine you have a GoPro and maybe on your head and on your arms. And from there, you have a 3D pose estimation. So once you have the view, you can estimate your pose. So in other words, you can estimate the geometry of your situation, and then from there the video, or this model, excuse me, PEVA, the model PEVA, predicts the next 10 seconds. So you're walking on a road and it predicts that you're going to move one leg, then the other leg, and you're going to move forward. You're walking in a let's say in an office building, it predicts that you're going to have to turn right at the next cubicle. How is it trained? It's trained on egocentric data, and it's using a diffusion model. This is key, meaning it's not using another regressive model, it's using a diffusion model. So therefore, with diffusion, you have better results in particularly longer horizon planning. Now we're talking here 10-second clips, so it's not exactly, minutes or hours, but even here, diffusion seems to work better. Now, what exactly is PEVA doing? PEVA is kind of doing what large language models are doing for text, but it's using it for poses and movements. And instead of words, the grammar is Euclidean geometry and angles. So one of the key examples that the paper's offering is the idea that, let's say you're in a kitchen and you're moving your arm from left to right to pick up a bottle. Now this arm movement is the same whether you're in a kitchen or whether you're walking outside and you're swinging your arm from left to right. It's the same exact movement. But from a robot's perspective, at least until PEVA, those were two different problems because the robot would capture different types of views and use maybe vision-based technology and convolute itself, basically waste a lot of compute and also a lot of knowledge and symmetry and things like that. Versus in this model, what it's doing, it's very similar to large language models. It's using attention and transformer architecture in order to estimate, like given the situation, given the angles, given the geometry of my elbow, this is what I predict will happen in the next 10 seconds. Same way, there's actually a pose tokenizer solution in the paper. So it's very similar to some of the other papers we discussed. You tokenize videos in a way. What does tokenizing videos even mean? It means that you're compressing the video in such a way that you can regenerate it and have high fidelity grounded in reality. And the idea is once the robot uses this type of model, it walks, let's say, in a factory, for example. It can predict the next 10 seconds. It knows that it can walk maybe towards a bunch of boxes, and then it will predict that it will get there, and then it has to maybe reach above the boxes to pick up something. Well, apparently also, and I wasn't clear about this, but it's also able to see around the corner. In other words, it can predict what happens if it walks towards, let's say, a shelf, and then it turns right, and then what comes after the shelf. Now, of course, it doesn't see that there could be an obstacle on the other side of the shelf or something like that. It doesn't see those sort of things. But it, assuming there's no unforeseen obstacle, it can predict what's around the shelf. And I think this is certainly interesting for things like what Andrew's doing with seeing around the house, or virtual reality stuff. I don't want to go into that now, but I guess seeing around the corner is, in my opinion, one of the interesting things that robotics can do, and particularly the kinds of robotics like full self-driving for cars or humanoid robots. Let's say a car can see around a curve, and then maybe adjust its speed or things like that accordingly. Now, right now, that is not a problem for full self-driving, because the roads are made in such a way that you can actually differentiate your speed along the way you drive, the same way humans do that. So you don't need to necessarily see the whole curve in order to adjust your speed. But nevertheless, I think there's some interesting solutions here. Now, last thing I want to say about this paper, which I find interesting, is the inverse, right? So what this is doing is it's taking a 3D pose from let's say a robot or a human, and it's predicting the next 10 seconds. What's interesting would be the inverse, where you have 10 seconds of video and you predict the actions. Now, the paper isn't talking about this, but the inverse modeling, the inverse action modeling of video prediction is one of the interesting problems that we see. I mean, Musk spoke about this in May. He wants Optimus to be able to learn from video, and I think this is part of where this research is going. Here at Orange Capital Partners, we're always interested in when science, technology, and entrepreneurship start overlap, and this is one of the good examples of science and technology. So this ability to predict 10 seconds ahead on a 3D pose also implies that you should be able to do the inverse. So from a video, it predicts the 10 seconds of actions that led to the formation of this video. Again, to summarize, I think this is an interesting paper in many ways, particularly the fact that it's egocentric, it's camera-based, so we have a lot less technology and sensors involved. We solve a lot of problems with transformer-based architecture, so software makes hardware cheaper. This is what Brian Catanzaro said not long ago. And I think it fits really well into this general picture of humanoid robots, low-cost humanoid robots that are camera-driven and that are able to make sense out of their environment based on computer vision and transformer architecture. Well, another question that I'm not sure is raised in the paper, I have to double check, is about the compute and the budget that you have if you use transformer-based architecture and diffusion technology. This is computationally expensive and also memory intensive. I don't know exactly how the authors talk about this, but I know they mention in the paper that this is not deployable yet, so maybe there has to be some tweaks, but the direction is certainly very interesting. Thank you.